Hey guys, Reginald Duck here, back today with another deck profile. So for today I've got my updated stun list for post Power of the Elements, so versus Sprite and Tearlaments especially. So let's get into it. So for the main deck, got the Spice, we've got 3 King Tiger Wangu. This card is insanely good against Sprite, so any card that is normal or special summoned with attack less than 1400, so 1400 or less, sorry, is destroyed. So basically every single Sprite monster in the main deck, they summon it, it'll just die. So it can be a free win against that deck. It's not good against Tearlament, but it's one of them. You do side an extra monster, you side another monster that you can side this into against Tear. So it's really good against Sprite, and since it's the most represented deck at my current locals, that's why I'm playing 3 of this. If you do face Tear, you could like mainly banish it, as if your locals has that as the most common deck. 3 copies of Inspector Border. I still think this card is insane. It's just massive. It's good against Rogue, it's good against a lot of different decks. It's good against everything, really. That's why I play it. Also, it being the biggest beta does help. 3 copies of Thunder King. I wasn't really sure what third stun monster to play because I was on the Fossil Diner, but I didn't really like the fact that you couldn't summon Fossil Diner if you already had the Wangu, because if you just top deck it you might as well have not drawn, because it does blow up your own cards as well. So I made it so that it doesn't affect me at all, which is what you really want in this deck. So 3 copies of Thunder King. Sprite searches a little bit, the blue searches, the jet searches, and it can negate an inherent summon. So still a really cool card against Rogue, stops everything really. Really cool card. And also again, it's massive. And then onto the spells, we've got 3 copies of Extravagance. I prefer Extravagance in stun decks because it doesn't matter which cards you see, it just matters that you see the most cards possible, because a lot of the times you are 1 for 1 in your opponent, they do something, you can pulse it, you go equal, so you want to be able to maintain some sort of advantage, because obviously you are going first, they get an extra card. So I like 3 copies of this, and also the extra deck, everything you'd want you play 3 of anyway except Omega, but never really comes up, so it doesn't matter what you banish. 3 copies of Duality. You couldn't special summon if you wanted to. This deck does not special summon at all. I did think about playing Ice Dragon's Prison, but even then that'd summon in their turn, but I didn't end up doing it. So 3 copies of Duality gets you through the deck. There is a clash between this and the Thunder King, but there's always going to be clashes with decks that have so many floodgate effects, so I feel like just having one that doesn't work with the other is okay. It's just a really good consistency card that has no downside at all in this deck. And then for an odd one, but I'll have to explain it, 3 copies of Forbidden Lance. At the minute at my locals, and I believe it's being played in a lot of other places, people actually maining Dark Ruler no more, which, if you've got, say, 2 traps and a border and they just Dark Ruler you just lose, so, because you can always extend through the 2. So it protects you from a lot of the things that would kill your Floodgate monster. So it protects you against the Impermanence, the Chalice, the Droplet, and the Dark Ruler. And yes, it does reduce your attack by 800, but a lot of the time they'll only have a guy that they're attacking into you with, and then they'll go off in the main phase 2 once they've outed the Floodgate monster. So if the border's on 1-2, the attack, you've actually got a lot of removal options. You've got the Compulse, you've got the Punishment, you've got another copy of Lance to using the damage step on their guy, and a couple of other cards. So I feel this isn't too bad, the downside of losing 800, to protect from all those board breaking cards that would absolutely crush this deck. So 3 copies of Lance. So what this actually does, I've not actually explained it, quick effect, reduce a monster by 800 and then protect it from spells and traps for the turn. so that is an insane effect, and you can activate in the damage step as well if you need to. So then you got 2 copies of Necrovalley. I think this card is really good against Tyr because they can't fusion summon at all, like using the graveyard effects, because it would move them back to the deck, cannot be activated. It's not amazing against Sprite, that's why I'm only playing the 2, because it stops the Ronin Totem, stops the Sprite Elf, and it stops the Smashers from banishing from grave. But other than that, it's not actually amazing against Sprite, so just the 2 copies. Also, I don't have a third Ulci, so maybe that's a factor, you'll never know. 1 copy of Card of Demise, just a draw card. It's just an extra copy of Extrav, really, just a card to eat an ash, really, but oh well. A lot of the time you do want to summon the border to then be able to resolve this, which is really nice. So you can't ash you. Onto the traps, there is a lot of them. 3 copies of Solemn Strike, one of my favourite trap cards. I'm not actually maining the Judgment because I feel it's a very good side card for when like all the board breakers coming, like the Duster, the Evenly, all the other nonsense that probably shouldn't be in the game. But 3 strike, just good for stopping monster effects and special summons. 3 copies of Compulse, like I said before about protecting your border once you've lanced it, or protecting your King Tiger Wanku or whatever it is. Just on attack declaration you bounce it. The way they've ruled this now, extra deck monsters don't get their effects if they used to resolve in extra deck, whereas now they just don't. So it can make a lot of things fizzle, so that's a really strong buff for this card. 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, again the 2 best decks at the minute, both are hit by this, as well as a lot of previous decks, so still good against Branded Despia, still good against Sword Soul, Tyr, Fusion deck, obviously Sprite is an XYZ deck, so Sprite can still do very minor things under this, like they can make Elf try and gain some advantage, grab a starter for next turn, but nothing amazing, so it really stops them like gaining so much crazy advantage, getting the Toad, the Zeus, whatever they need, so really great. 3 copies of Punishment, has no conflicts that I can think of with any of the cards. The card you send can have conflict with border, but just send something else. So, because this needs to send to graveyard, so you can't play it with like Macro Cosmos up, for example, but I don't play anything like that, so really great removal. Like I said before about needing to maintain advantage, you can just destroy 2 cards with 1 card, so that's really key for sort of 2 for 1 in your opponent. There we go, get rid of that. 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. I find it's really good because it's like the Compulse all over again, just removal without having to actually destroy the card, get it in graveyard, get out the nonsense effects. So 2 Storming, just bounce all your opponent's attack position monsters, and it protects you guys you've lanced. 3 copies of there can be only 1. All the Sprite guys are Thunder. It can be quite tough to out, especially since it doesn't affect you at all, as long as you don't have, for example, 2 Border, 2 Thunder King, whatever. So really cool. And then for the last card, the bit of Spice, very meta dependent on like your locals or whatever you're playing it for. I'm actually maining 2 copies of Shadow Mirror because all the Sprite main deck monsters that you need to worry about are darks, as well as the Gigantic Sprite being a dark. So the Jet, the Blue and Gigantic are all dark, and it negates monster effects in graveyard as well, so a lot of the Tyr cards are dark. The Shaddolls they play with them are also dark, so it's not like the Dragon from popping a card, which is really important in this matchup. It would stop, if they play it, the Shaddoll Beast from drawing a card, and it would actually stop them fusion summoning from graveyard as well with a lot of the effects, so it can really stun out Tyr Element. So that's it for the main deck. A lot of these floodgates are highly specific depending on matchup, so you've got to be at a locals where say for example out of 4 rounds you're going to face 3 of the 2 best decks, so really good. And that's it for the main deck. onto the extra deck. I'm just going to blast through it because it's really not important at all, except for targets for stuff. So 2 5k beaters, a 4k beater, sorry 4-5 because I couldn't find another 5k, a 4k. These are all just for sending off the Dogmatika punishment because it needs cards of high attack to send. More cards of high attack. Yeah, so it's they could all be 5k beaters, but I couldn't. I mean, there's no point digging them out. A 4-5 beater and a 5k beater are exactly the same in this context because no one at the minute is summoning 5k beaters really. So that's all of those. And then 3 copies of Elder Entity Intis, one of the best cards to send off the punishment. So this is what makes it a 2-for-1 because when this is sent to the graveyard, you destroy a card. Really, really cool. 3 Fossil Warrior. It's basically a slower Intis, so you can just banish it from your graveyard in your turn as a spell speed 1 effect to destroy a card. Sorry, to destroy a monster, that is. So just if there's nothing to send, like if there's no point sending the Intis if you don't have another card, you'd rather send this to get the sort of delayed destruction. So 3 of those. 1 Omega. Similar premise. It can also be used to out the DPE. Not that DPE sees many play anymore, but I did discover this, so I am quite proud of it. You punishment, send this. If you chain the DPE, that's fine. If you don't chain the DPE, then the punishment destroys it anyway. Then you can use the Omega to actually put the DPE back in the deck. So really, really cool. Just, I hate that card. And then 1 Atignista just spins a card by banishing from grave. So again, just more removal. It's not very big, so you can't often send it off punishment, but it is nice to send. So that's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, against Tearlament, you put in the 3 Banishers because you take out the 3 King Tiger Wanku because it only hits one of their cards. It can only stop the one with 800 attack, and then it destroys it and they get to fusion summon. So you really, really don't want that card against them, but I do like it against Sprite. So 3 copies of Banisher. It's a bit small, coming in at 1600, but I mean, it's a Macrocosmos on legs. It doesn't block up your back row. You can attack with it. So I don't even side the macro, but I do main this. And obviously you can protect it with like the lance or whatever to stop them just Dark Ruler in it. Onto the spells. Got 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. You can just get decked out by Mystic Mine sometimes. If they just don't summon a guy, you can't actually destroy anything with the punishment. So you could just get literally how many cards in deck? Less than you. Okay, go next. So you do want to at least have a side for it, especially if it's already up on the board. It's all well and good having the Judgment, but if they just mine you straight away, there is nothing you can do about it. So 2 copies of Cosmic. 3 copies of Judgment. You have to side this in every single game because everybody is playing back row removal. So you'll get Evenly, Lightning Storm, Dusted, Twin Twisted, Cosmic. It can make it hard, but it's really, really fun. Like, game 1s are so much fun that sometimes you've got to be willing to just get blown out and lose to cards that are very, very unfun. But I mean, you can't complain if you're playing Stun. The idea is they don't have fun. So 3 copies of Judgment, and also this card is just insane. 3 copies of Evenly because going second is a reality that you have to face. You don't want to deal with any of your opponent's cards. With the meta being so diverse at the minute, you still have to side cards for going first, which is why it's quite tough to side for going second. The plan is win the die roll, go first, lose game 2, win game 3. But this at least gives you a chance in that game 2 because it just clears the field, and if you resolve this summon border, the odds are they can't really come back at all. So 3 copies. And then for your really specific floodgates, you put this in against Sprite. They can't special summon monsters with the same level as monsters they control. They can't special summon monsters with the same rank as the ranks they control. So they summon Ronin Toden or whatever, and they flip this. They can't summon blue, they can't summon any of this stuff. Literally can end the turn if they don't have an answer to it. So 2 copies of Andaban played on. And then exactly the same thing but for Tearlaments. Soul Drain stops monster effects in the graveyard. So they can't fusion summon using any of the guys that have been sent by monster effect. So if you go first, they can't use the hand trap tier element because you have to activate a monster effect for them to be able to use that to start sending stuff. So if you go first, you just summon one of your guys with a continuous effect, and then you just flip up this. They've never had a chance to be able to fusion summon with it, and obviously you've got all your other backup things. So really, really good side card. So that's it for my side deck. So this has been my updated stun deck profile for post Power of the Elements. I really do think this King Tiger is being slept on at the minute. I think against some matchups it is absolutely insane. In other ones, I mean, at least it's a beta, whereas the Fossil Dino is genuinely tiny. So that's why I do like this card. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.